So now the fun part, let's light these lamps up. I'm going to use my trusty De Jeep lighter. Excellent lighters, by the way. They're made in France, super heavy duty. Get like 4,000 lights out of them. So here's the Cosmos, real simple. All I do is pull the chimney off, set it over here. This is how you adjust your wick, this little knob right here. You want to have the wick so it pokes up maybe about a 1/16 of an inch and light it just like that. If it's too high, there'll be all this smoke coming out. You don't want that. And if it's too low, it won't light. So you want it right about there, maybe an inch or so. And then take your chimney and put that right back on top. And we're going to let that sit for a few minutes. We're going to let it slowly warm up. If I crank the flame up to full blast right now, it would probably be okay, but it's not ideal. Could create a little bit of stress in this glass right here. So you want things to gradually warm up. The glass is going to get hot and expand a little, and these little copper fingers here that hold the chimney in, that will expand too. So we're going to just let that thing warm up. In the meantime, let's light our Aladdin. This Aladdin has a shade on it, so we first need to take that shade off. Set that down right here. And then what you do is you take off the chimney and the mantle as one assembly. So we'll set that down. A little more complicated lighting the Aladdin than the Cosmos. And now we're going to light our wick. This wick is a little bit charred, and I'm going to be using this wick anyways. These wicks are pretty expensive, so I don't want to replace it just yet. But it just goes to show that the Aladdin can be a little more finicky than the Cosmos. If it was a Cosmos, I would just burn that wick down and then get a fresh, clean spot for it to start working with. With Aladdin, I don't really want to burn that wick down just because they're pretty expensive wicks. They're about, just shy of 20 bucks, and you really want to get as much out of it as you can. So what we're going to do is adjust that wick so it's probably about an inch or two. It's because of the char around the wick, you can see it's starting up a little bit slow. We'll just let that go for about a minute till the flame comes all the way around. And then once that flame is all the way around, what we're going to do is put on our mantle assembly. Okay, so we have our flame going on the wick right now for the Aladdin. So now we're going to take the mantle chimney assembly and we're going to put that on like this. And this goes on with a little bit of a twist. So this also needs a warm-up process. What you first want to do is, all lamps work the same. They have a little knob that makes the wick go up and down. You want to turn the wick, and you want to get, this is the mantle that we're watching right now, get illuminated. You want to turn that so it's just a little bit illuminated. You don't want to turn it up too much at first. That would be too much right there. Let's leave it just like this, and we'll let that warm up for a little bit. What that does, it gives the mantle time to warm up, gives the chimney time to warm up, and then after maybe about 5 minutes of waiting, we'll go back and I'll show you how we can fine-tune that and get it set exactly where we want it. Okay, in the meantime, our Cosmos lamp is all warmed up and ready to go, so let's get that adjusted. This would be too high. If there's smoke coming out the top, that's not ideal, and this would be too low. You always want to burn any sort of kerosene lamp at its maximum. That'll make it burn most efficient. So with this particular lamp, that seems to be right about there. And after it burns for an hour or so, you probably have to adjust it again because the wick gets burned down, but you can typically go an hour or so without any adjustments. So what we're going to do, we'll turn the lights on, and that way you guys can see what it looks like in the dark. And we'll check out the Cosmos here, and then pretty soon we'll start cranking up the light on the Aladdin, and we can sort of see a comparison between the two. So with this lamp, if I'm in a small room and I have this sitting next to me on a little nightstand or something like that, I can easily read a book by it. A couple of these in a small room, we usually have 2 or 3 in our house. That's enough to light it up and give you enough room to feel comfortable and do normal chores. You could put one of these in the kitchen and it would be enough light to do dishes or normal household tasks. And it gives off a pretty good amount of heat. If I get my hands about that close, I'm feeling quite a bit of heat. Any closer and I would start to feel uncomfortable. There's quite a bit of heat that comes off the top. That's about as close as I can get my hand. So you want to make sure that if you have a low ceiling, you may need to put a piece of sheet metal on the ceiling. They even make smoke bells that you can put over the chimney that helps deflect the heat. Just don't put anything flammable up there. You can potentially start a fire. Speaking of fire, despite what you see in the movies, these are actually quite safe. If you knock one over, the whole house doesn't burst into flames. It just doesn't work that way. If you knock it over, the flame's going to go out. So they're really pretty safe. That said, you don't want to knock it over. You never want to try to refuel it while it's burning. So anyways, let's get back to our Aladdin. This is getting pretty warmed up, so we're going to start to crank this one up. The wick on the Cosmos is what's creating the light. The wick on the Aladdin creates a little bit of light, but its main function is to create heat. It's that heat that is lighting up the mantle. And that mantle right now is glowing about as bright as we can get it. If we go a little bit further, we're going to actually start getting black spots on the mantle, and then it's if you see black spots appearing, you know you went a little bit too bright. Right now we have it perfectly adjusted, and you can run these with or without a shade. This particular one has a shade, and with a shade it's ideal if you want to be close to it and read a book. If you want to get one where it just lights up the room, then you run it without the shade. Now these are pretty bright, almost a little bit uncomfortable once your eyes get adjusted to the dark. You don't want to sit too close to it without the shade. You put a shade on and it's a nice bright lamp. So there's a comparison of the two. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of the Cosmos. 2 of these are going to burn as bright as this. 2 of these are going to cost less than the Aladdin. 2 of these are going to cost a lot less to run as far as parts and fuel that you put into it. But that said, I still keep an Aladdin because it's bright, gives off a lot of heat. It's really fun. If you have one in the center of a table with some people sitting around playing cards or having dinner, it makes a really nice bright centerpiece. So there's a place for both of these lamps, the Aladdin and the Cosmos.